Chapter 61 Leap. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing the prince rushing into the lava and fire rain, Coleswell almost collapsed. He was the eldest son of the king. Whenever something unexpected happened, he would not be sorry for the white robe behind him. Cole mustered up the courage to break out of the cave again. However, the temperature inside the cave increased rapidly. Magma is dripping all over the ground, and no ordinary person can get close to it. Cole could only watch helplessly as the prince led the young dragon Grey Shadow up the slope, unable to get close at all. Roar! Finally, the glutton landed smoothly, holding his head high and roaring in the magma cave. It seems to be declaring the death judgment of the hunter on the prey. At this time, Rhaegar and Grey Shadow climbed up the slope, moving slowly with their backs against the hot stone wall. After roaring, the glutton turned to look at Rhaegar and Grey Shadow. His huge green vertical pupils as big as copper bells flashed with a playful look. The two little snacks struggled to climb high, but in fact they were not even at the height of their chests. To eat them, you have to lower your head to enter. The glutton twisted his neck and looked around, his keen sense of smell catching the scent of strangers. It is a wild dragon with a huge appetite, usually hunts large fish in the sea. Occasionally, he steals the dragon eggs laid by the female dragon on the island, or preys on weak young dragons. Humans are not on its diet, however. If you break into its field of vision, you can eat it without fail. The glutton bent his knees with his paws, bent his back, put his huge dragon head close to the ground, and discovered the human snacks hidden in the cave. The green vertical pupils were full of indifference, and he opened his dragon's kiss to charge up the dragon flames. No. Cole was located at the edge of the cave, and his view was exactly opposite the gluttonous mouth of the glutton. Facing the green dragon flame boiling in the dragon's kiss, his whole body went rigid. He seemed to see his deceased grandmother waving to him. He knew that the stranger had extended an invitation to him. When the dragon flames were about to launch, a shout from the sky resounded throughout the underground cave. Glutton! Look directly at me, that the dragon can understand a small part of the High Valyrian language. As an adult dragon that is nearly 100 years old, Gluttonous can naturally understand part of the meaning. Glancing disdainfully at the frightened ordinary humans in the cave, the glutton gathered the dragon flames, closed the dragon's kiss and turned around. As far as the eye can see, a human cub is standing on a steep cliff, with a baby dragon snack under it. The glutton stared at each other indifferently. With a look of anger in his eyes as he was disturbed from eating, it decided to swallow this ignorant human cub into its belly first. Looking into the eyes of a ferocious adult dragon, Rhaegar's eyes were full of excitement, and he was no longer as embarrassed as when facing Mtlnovel. He is Rhaegar Targaryen. A pure-blooded descendant of the Dragon King can only fear dragons once in his life. After breaking the Grey Shadow's head, which was cowering in fear, Rhaegar gave it an order: "Stay where you are, you cowardly dragon." That the young Grey Shadow could not yet understand High Valyrian, but he could feel the meaning of the human before him. He shivered and curled up, his head buried under his wings, not daring to look further. Rhaegar looked angry and amused. How could there be such a timid dragon like you? It's really embarrassing for the dragon. Hiss. In a short time, the glutton couldn't bear the violence in his heart, and roared with murderous intent, and the dragon flames gathered in his throat. At the moment of crisis, Rhaegar patted Grey Shadow's pale wing membrane and said, "Take care of yourself, I'm going to start my own adventure." After saying that, Rhaegar took a step forward and fearlessly faced the prostrate glutton below. "Big guy, you are destined to be conquered by me." Raising his head and roaring in High Valyrian, Rhaegar summoned every bit of courage in his body and jumped off the cliff regardless of his own safety. Roar! The moment Rhaegar jumped down, dragon flames erupted with a low roar, and a green curtain of fire spread out, a chapter of destruction. Looking at this scene from a distance, Cole's eyes were blank and he sat slumped on the ground. Madman, the rumors are right, Targaryens are all madmen. He never imagined that a 6-year-old child would dare to charge an adult dragon, but none of that matters anymore. He had a premonition of what this dragon was going to do. His life is coming to an end and his honor is meaningless. However, Long Yen was always one step behind Lei Jia. In the midst of the green dragon flames, Lei Jia opened his hands and avoided the torrent of dragon flames like a bird. The small body accurately hit the glutton's broad back lying on the ground. Boom! Rhaegar fell hard. The hard dragon scales were like steel plates, and the force of the recoil almost made him faint. A strong desire to conquer filled his brain, tightening his only nerve and repeatedly urging him to stand up. Ah! Rhaegar got up staggeringly, and with his head spinning, he yelled out loud, proving his determination to risk his life and survive. Glutton, fly! Bearing in mind the wisdom in the dragon training manual, Rhaegar gave the first instructions to the glutton in High Valyrian. Hiss! The truth was very cruel. The glutton ignored his orders at all, roared angrily, and twisted his body crazily, wanting to throw off this human cub who wanted to tame him. He burned it to ashes with a mouthful of dragon flame. It is the oldest and largest wild dragon king in the history of Dragonstone and even Westeros. Many humans tried to tame it in the early years, but all of them turned into charcoal. The little things on your back are no exception. His feet were shaking violently, and Rhaegar was unable to stand firmly, and fell down with a thud. At the critical moment, Rhaegar grabbed the glutton's back scales and used all his strength to stabilize his body so as not to be thrown away. Ha ha ha. With the crisis approaching, Rhaegar felt no fear in his heart, but could not help but laugh loudly. At this moment, he was walking on thin ice. The disaster that could topple him at any time could not suppress his will, it will only inspire the madness and fearlessness deep in his blood. Glutton, I command you to fly and carry me soaring into the sky. Laughing wildly mixed with High Valyrian, Rhaegar used his hands and feet to steady himself and gave the command to fly again. Hiss! This time, the glutton didn't refuse his order. The vertical pupils full of anger were full of violence, his feet supported his body, the sharp claws on his wings clasped the stone wall, and he quickly climbed out of the narrow cave. Want to fly? Then fly enough. On the steep slope, the grey shadow that was attacked by the dragon flames lay on the ground dying, with its head lying on the ground limply, and blood flowing from the dragon's kiss. In its grey-blue vertical pupils, Rhaegar's thin figure was reflected. As the glutton climbed out of the cave, the clear reflection gradually blurred until it disappeared. This made it neigh sadly and look at the huge glutton unwillingly. The glutton is as big as a mountain, but its movements are still extremely agile. Within a moment, he crawled out of the underground cave and was exposed to the vast sky again. Glutton, fly! The dazzling light forced Rhaegar to close his eyes. He grabbed his back scales with both hands and gave instructions repeatedly. He is showing his will to the glutton. The dragon will not recognize a weak-minded coward. He has already experienced failure once and will never repeat the same mistake. Under the blue sky and white clouds, the glutton's dark body is like a mountain of coal, with its wings flapping and stretching out its majestic body. There were disturbing words in his ears, and the glutton turned his neck back, and the ferocious dragon head was close to the little thing on his back. An abyss-like bloody mouth opened, and the dragon's kiss drew a bloodthirsty arc. The third update today, Rhaegar climbed onto the dragon's back and conquered the ferocious dragon. Chapter 62 Sky and Sea. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It didn't breathe dragon flames, nor did it intend to tear it apart. The glutton flapped its wings, and its huge body left the mountain top and rushed towards the boundless sky. Feeling the weightlessness coming over him, Rhaegar barely opened his eyes and found that there were no obstacles around him, and there were drifting clouds above his head. It's flying. His eyes immediately widened, and Rhaegar murmured softly, looking at the new sight at a loss. Immediately, Rhaegar was overjoyed and laughed excitedly. I flew up, I successfully rode on the back of the dragon. Rhaegar adjusted his movements to lie on the dragon's back better, looking down at the earth below. Glutton flies very fast, soaring above the clouds with ease. Dragonstone Island, which originally could not be walked around in a day, turned into an ordinary small island in Rhaegar's eyes. Rhaegar understood that it was not that Dragonstone had become smaller, but on the back of a dragon, all stalwart beings are no longer tall. Just when he relaxed slightly, the glutton spit out a mouthful of dragon flame into the sky. His speed suddenly increased, and he rushed into the blazing dragon flame. Rhaegar's pupils shrank and he quickly lay down to avoid the torrent of dragon flames. Each dragon's individual characteristics are different. The same is true for the shape and color of dragon flames. The glutton's dragon flame is a deathly green color, shaped like smoke, changing between gaseous and liquid states, and has extremely strong adhesion. Once contaminated by its dragon flame, it will be as difficult to extinguish as the maggots on the tarsal bones. Rhaegar can temporarily resist the burning of dragon flames, But he will never be able to withstand the continuous damage contaminated by dragon flames. Boom, the glutton passed through the overwhelming green dragon. Flames, fluttering its wings and soaring forward. Rhaegar clung to its back, and the dragon flames burned the clothes on his back half, leaving red and swollen burns. He was burned by the dragon flame again, but the injury was much lighter, perhaps because his bloodline is purer, his resistance to dragon flames is stronger. Rhaegar pinched out a strand of burning hair, with an unyielding look on his face, and shouted loudly, "Dragon flame," that he sensed the resistance of the glutton. The black dragon didn't recognize him. Then come, welcome the dragon flames that burn everything, and issue orders unyieldingly. Let's see who succumbs first, or Rhaegar dies in the flames. Hearing the instructions in High Valyrian, the glutton became more and more agitated, leaping and moving in mid-air, breathing dragon flames while trying to shake it off. Rhaegar gritted his teeth and refused to let go. He had a premonition that the winner would be the one who persisted until the end. In the cave, the figure of the glutton has long disappeared also. Disappearing with it was the king's eldest son. After a moment of relief, Cole regained his senses and led a quick evacuation. The prince is missing and he has to report to the princess and the king. Regardless of the outcome, he must take responsibility. After running out of Longshan in embarrassment, Cole met the dragon guard who had returned from exploring the canyon. Long Wei wanted to join him, but he pushed him away and ran towards the castle regardless. At some point, the clear sky changed its color and dark clouds began to form. The patter, heavy raindrops washed over the earth, and the cool breeze was as cold as his heart. Finally returned to the castle, just in time for the king's family to reunite in the hall. Looking at Cole who was drowned, Viserys was the first to speak, wondering, "Sir, why are you in such a panic?" Cole lowered his head and said in despair, "The prince was taken away by a giant dragon." A dragon? Viserys had not yet reacted. Rhaenyra suddenly stood up from her chair, stared at Cole, and asked, "Aren't you looking for the young dragon?" "We were tricked into Longshan by false news and found a young dragon, but we were attacked by another very huge adult dragon." Cole shook his head and said feebly, "The prince saw something was wrong, but still refused to leave. He threw himself on the back of the dragon alone, intending to tame the dragon." "Damn it, you just watch Rhaegar charging towards a dragon." Viserys was instantly furious. Rhaenyra rushed to Cole and said anxiously, "Where is Rhaegar? Where is the dragon?" "I don't know. The prince gave the flying command to the dragon, and we had no time to stop it." Cole has been with Rhaenyra all year round, and some of the key High Valyrian languages are still familiar. Snapped, the loud slap echoed in the empty hall. Rhaenyra pointed at Cole with her slapping right hand. Anger filled her heart, and she gritted her teeth and said, "I'm just a younger brother, and I trust you to let you protect him." "Sorry." A slap mark appeared on Cole's face, and he lowered his head in shame. "Stop talking nonsense, send people to look for traces of the dragon, now," Rhaenyra said with a cold voice and rushed out of the hall first. Taming an adult dragon is no joke. Every year on Dragonstone there are bold guys who want to secretly tame wild dragons. No one has ever succeeded. In the end, they either turned into ashes or were burned beyond human dignity. She originally thought that with the lesson of Dream Fire, Rhaegar would be able to tame a young dragon with peace of mind. Unexpectedly, Rhaegar still had not extinguished his ambition to tame the adult dragon. The ownerless dragons on Dragonstone Island have been without a dragon driver for a long time, and they are full of wildness. The difficulty and danger of taming are far greater than those of Dreamfire bound by chains. Rhaegar's desire for an adult dragon was to help her. If Rhaegar had an accident because of this, she didn't dare to think about it. She will live in endless self-blame for the rest of her life. The soaring dragon beats all the fierce horses in the world. A raging dragon with enough power to destroy any town, no matter what. He couldn't get rid of the human cub on his back. The glutton's green eyes flashed crazily, and every roar shook the sky. "Glutton, dragon flame." Rhaegar lay on the dragon's back and continued to issue instructions. Hearing these disturbing instructions, the glutton refused to listen and played devil's advocate. The body is spread out flat, the neck is slightly tilted downward, and the vertical pupils are staring at the sky blue sea below. It wants to rush into the sea and wash the bugs off its back. Under the extremely fast dive, Rhaegar's body was suspended in the air, leaving only a pair of hands with blood blisters grasping the scales on his back. The air pressure made it difficult for him to breathe. Rhaegar closed his eyes tightly and opened his mouth unconsciously. He wanted to shout in support, but his mouth was filled with airflow. Plop, the glutton crashed straight into the undulating sea, and his entire body was submerged by the water. After the storm, Rhaegar ate a full meal, the seawater choked him and made him unable to breathe, and it quickly flowed down his mouth and nose into his lungs. For a moment, Rhaegar felt a sense of powerlessness sweep through him. Subconsciously, I want to loosen my hands. Roar. The glutton roared loudly at the bottom of the sea, devouring the passing fish. The dragon's tail swayed and exerted force, and it rushed upward with its head raised. The dark dragon breaks through the sea, flutters its wings and rushes into the blue sky. Dragons can briefly dive into the ocean, but they can't stay there for long. The glutton hates the sea water, and rushes into the ocean and quickly breaks through the waves. This gave Rhaegar a chance to breathe. Taking advantage of the opportunity for the glutton to break free from the sea water, Rhaegar thumped his chest and coughed violently, spitting out a bellyful of sea water. He opened his eyes in confusion and saw a huge black dragon gliding against the sea level, its feet making waves. The fourth update today. It must be worthy of the follow-up and support of book friends. And the process of training a dragon can be mastered in one go. Chapter 63 Successful Control. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Glutton, don't you still recognize me? Rhaegar lay helplessly on the dragon's back, trying to communicate with the dragon beneath his crotch. I thought I wouldn't get a response. The glutton turned around uncharacteristically, his green vertical pupils no longer manic, but instead showing a humanistic look. I have to say that the will of the little bug on its back moved it. The glutton snorted at Rhaegar, arrogantly withdrew his head and continued to fly forward. This moment, Rhaegar stared at the glutton. Rhaegar's figure was reflected in the glutton's vertical pupils. A brief and tenuous connection was made. In this vague connection, Rhaegar felt the glutton's heart, cruel, aloof, indifferent. That is the spiritual portrayal of this dark dragon that has never been tamed. It is arrogant and does not need a driver to disturb its lonely life. Now the glutton felt Rhaegar's resolve. Willing to give him a chance to impress himself, understanding its will, Rhaegar grinned. Come on. The more difficult the test, the more worth the risk for me. Hiss. The glutton roared into the sky, fluttering its wings and suddenly took off into the sky. The speed broke through the air current, and the glutton soared into the sky, passing through the layers of dark clouds filled with water vapor, flying to the highest altitude possible. The glutton steadied his figure. He looked back at the little bug lying on the ground and grinned cruelly. Whoosh! The glutton's thick neck was thrown back, and his body performed a backflip in mid-air, once, twice. After flipping over 3 times in a row, the glutton took advantage of the inertia of the flipping to stand upright, fluttering its wings and swooping down. Rhaegar clung to whatever he could. After resisting 3 flips, dizziness rushed to the sky, and the body was numb and weak in the weightless state. The glutton roared through the clouds. Rhaegar could no longer hold on to his scales and fell off the dragon's back. The glutton keeps an eye on the little bugs behind his back. Seeing that it was finally thrown away, the glutton let out a winner's scream. The heavy body fell faster, and he stabilized his figure before Rhaegar. A huge abyss mouth opened directly below where its body fell, and raging dragon flames accumulated in its throat. It wants to burn it into coke and then use it to plug the gaps between teeth. Boom! Green dragon flames spit out, drawing a gorgeous curtain under the dim sky covered with clouds. Rhaegar still retains clear consciousness. His body continued to fall, and he could already feel the heat as he watched the dragon flames coming towards him. The pressure of death came over him. Rhaegar opened his eyes wide and thought about how to save himself. The glutton's body is directly below, and the chance of his death is not 100%. Rhaegar opened his arms and legs, trying his best to change the trajectory of his fall. The dragon flames were coming toward his face, and he couldn't avoid them. I am Rhaegar Targaryen, and my will is enough to tame any dragon in the world. Repeating these words in his heart, Lei Jia closed his eyes and embraced Long Yen. He has the same source of blood and fire. As long as he rushes through the dragon flames, he will definitely be able to conquer this dark dragon. The body was enveloped in dragon flames, and all the clothes on Rhaegar's body were burned. Just when the skin and flesh were being roasted by the dragon flames, the system beep sounded. Congratulations, the last fire has been activated. You have obtained True Dragon's Blood, level, legend, red, effect, fire element affinity plus 50%, comment, the ancient bloodline is full of mysterious power. You are the embodiment of blood and fire. A wisp of fire hidden in the system panel suddenly bloomed, penetrated into Rhaegar's chest, and merged into his heart. Suddenly, Rhaegar opened his eyes, an unnatural blush appeared on his pale cheeks, and the veins on his neck popped. The personal panel appeared before my eyes and began to change. Rhaegar Targaryen, talents, dreamer, gold, longevity, green, bloodline, ancient Valyrian dragon king, plus 20%, skills, proficient in Valyrian, relics, blood and fire resistance plus 50%, true dragon's blood, fire element affinity plus 50%, comment, the ancient bloodline is further inspired, pure and simple. Rhaegar stared closely at the pedigree column, and the percentage value continued to rise, 20%, 23%, 27%, in one breath, the bloodline soared to 33%, and the plus representing the increase disappeared. Without his knowledge, a layer of flames emerged from the surface of the body, and then disappeared into the dragon flames. He didn't notice anything wrong. He just felt a force bursting from his heart and flowing through his body through his blood. The body is still falling, the green dragon flame enveloped every inch of skin, and the scalding heat deeply stimulated the nerves. Rhaegar did not let out any screams and allowed the dragon flames to erode his flesh. His skin was still white and tender, and his body surface temperature gradually increased. He's adapting to fire. Rhaegar kept gliding and quickly rushed out of the heavily surrounded dragon flames. He did not fall into the jaws of a glutton. Instead, it changed its trajectory and passed by its dragon kiss, rolling along its back. The head and tail of a glutton are very far apart. Rhaegar struggled around a lot, and when he was about to fall again, he finally caught the tip of its tail. Quiet. At this moment, the sky and ocean seem to be quiet. The wind no longer howls and the rain no longer drips. The glutton stayed in the air on the sea, beating the strong wind with its wings and no longer moving. Perhaps, it was doubting its own dragon flame. Perhaps it was shocked by this little bug. Rhaegar took advantage of this opportunity and climbed up using his hands and feet, back on the glutton's back. With the back scales in hand, Rhaegar braced himself for the glutton's resistance. However, the glutton did not move. Rhaegar raised his head suspiciously and met the eyes of a ferocious dragon head. At some point, the glutton turned his head and stared at Rhaegar calmly. One person and one dragon looked at each other, and each other's figures were reflected in their eyes. Dragon Kiss was less than a few meters away from Rhaegar, and his breath was very hot. Rhaegar felt something, and tentatively stretched out his palm. The glutton's green vertical pupils were filled with suspicion, and he punched his nose so hard that Rhaegar could hardly sit still. Rhaegar turned his face sideways to resist the dragon's breath that was full of sulphurous stench. The raised palm still did not fall. Waited for a while, feeling the rough texture on his palm. Rhaegar slowly turned his head, his brows immediately relaxed. The glutton stretched his neck, and the dragon's snout covered by scales touched his palm. Rhaegar stared at this scene blankly. The corners of his mouth moved slightly, and the words he wanted to say were choked in his throat. The glutton was also looking at him, his vertical pupils filled with pride, as if to say, "You win, boy." Rhaegar suddenly smiled and rubbed the glutton's scales with his palms, feeling an indescribable sense of accomplishment in his heart. "Glutton, fly." Rhaegar retracted his palm, grasped the glutton's back scales, and gave instructions in High Valyrian. Hiss. Same command, same roar. This time, the glutton no longer resisted Rhaegar on his back. As he flapped his wings and flew high into the sky, his body was extremely stable and he felt no bumps at all. Rhaegar was greatly surprised by the novelty. He did not expect that the glutton's flying skills were so good. He tried to loosen his hands and close his eyes to enjoy the cool breeze. In this moment, Rhaegar's initial connection with Glutton continues to grow. Rhaegar could feel the discomfort in Glutton's heart, not yet used to accepting him as his master. Glutton can also feel Rhaegar's thoughts. It specially slowed down its flight speed and carried him flying above the sea, letting out showy neighing from time to time. Gluttony knew that Rhaegar had never ridden another dragon. When flying, it holds its head high, showing him its most majestic side. Rhaegar was amused by its mentality. At the same time, I was moved beyond words. Their cheeks pressed against the cold scales of the glutton, hugging each other tightly. This is his dragon, a dragon that belongs exclusively to Rhaegar Targaryen. He has great expectations and love for it. Rhaegar closed his eyes, deeply smelling the scent of the glutton, and murmured, "From now on, your and my stories will be spread for thousands of years." The 5th update today. The chapter on how to train your dragon has been updated in one go, so book lovers will enjoy it. Chapter 64 Return of the Dragon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Dragonstone, castle, rain was pouring down, and armored soldiers were dispatched from all sides of the castle. Viserys sat alone in the dark castle hall, listening to the sound of rain with deep eyes. The castle hall is opened. Rhaegar strode forward, dripping wet. Is there any news about Rhaegar? Viserys said solemnly. Rhaegar said in a depressed mood, some fishermen witnessed a black dragon leaping towards the narrow sea. Send more manpower, mobilize all the manpower in the castle, and dispatch all the ships on the island that can go to sea. Viserys' expression changed and he sighed deeply. He has already investigated the origin of the dark dragon. It is the largest and oldest wild dragon on the island. He often eats baby dragons and eggs, and is called a glutton by fishermen. It was a rather ferocious black dragon. Rhaegar was only a 6-year-old child, and the probability of taming a glutton was too low. Now I can only pray that the glutton's picky nature of human flesh can save Rhaegar's life. Rhaegar wiped the water stains on her face and said in a daze, all the people who can be sent have been dispatched. I also asked people to prepare a large ship to return to King's Landing. Return to King's Landing? Viserys looked at her puzzled. Rhaegar's face was full of sadness. If there is no news from Rhaegar tonight, I will return to King's Landing to control Silax and go to sea to find the Black Dragon. This is not a good idea. The Black Dragon is much larger than Syracuse. You and your dragon will only become its food. Viserys was clear-minded and rejected the offer outright. If it comes to that, I will kill that wild dragon. Rhaegar said persistently. On the 3rd floor, Alicent was sitting beside the bed. A man in black robes stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows on the balcony, overlooking the noise in the castle below. You designed that child to be taken away by the wild dragon. Alicent looked nervous and sounded angry. The man in black robe turned around and said calmly, that's his bad luck. I originally planned to attract Silverwing, who lost the dragon egg. Who knew there would be a wild dragon that stepped in? You asked me to reveal the information to Rhaegar, misleading him to go to Dragon Mountain. Alicent's eyes were red, and he felt an inexplicable fear. Of course she knew that the man in black found her to set up Rhaegar, but after the incident was actually committed, the panic in her heart made her uneasy. The man in black robe knew this about her and said sarcastically, once the king's eldest son dies, your son Aegon will be the first male heir. Shouldn't you be happy? But I'm just afraid. If Rhaegar is not dead, he is still alive. Alicent was a bit incoherent. The man in black robe interrupted, the glutton is the most ferocious wild dragon. That boy desperately wants to tame it. I'm afraid he has already fed it to the dragon. He didn't think that a wild dragon that had survived alone for decades would be tamed by a little doll. He had already transferred away the Huanlong people who were falsely spreading the news. The 2 guards who were detained for interrogation could not find out anything. Alicent closed his mouth and covered his face with painful hands. She was still scared and felt extremely guilty. The man in black robe said nonchalantly, don't worry, even if that kid is lucky enough to survive, I have other ways. There was a lot of commotion in the castle, and Rhaegar was at the center of the conversation. Rhaegar had no idea about this and indulged in the pleasure of riding the dragon. After sailing on the wide and narrow sea for a long time, Rhaegar finally had enough. Gluttony, let's return to Dragonstone. Rhaegar spoke High Valyrian and gave orders to the glutton. The connection between them is not enough, and most of the instructions have to be conveyed through language. Glutton is an adult dragon with a lot of pride. Now that he recognized Rhaegar, he no longer spoke against him. The dragon had turned around, flapped its wings and sped away. The glutton is extremely fast with all his strength. It streaked across the rolling clouds like a black meteor. Not long after, the glutton lowered its flying height, and Dragonstone appeared below. Glutton, come down from the clouds. I want to show Rhaegar and the others how powerful you are. Rhaegar looked forward to it. Wealth that does not return to its hometown is like walking in brocade at night. He single-handedly tamed the most powerful wild dragon and must surprise everyone. At this time, the castle was in chaos. Rhaegar argued with Viserys and ran out of the castle hall. Find Lord Robert and order him to prepare the ship for return. I want to return to King's Landing before tomorrow morning, and there can be no delay. Rhaegar urged. Lord Robert looked embarrassed and did not dare to arrange for the princess to return without the king's consent. Hiss. In an instant, a deafening dragon roar echoed through the entire castle. Rhaegar raised her head, and a strong wind roared, blowing her wet hair away. In her sight, a huge beast as black as coal soared over the castle. A pair of sky-covering wings enveloped half of the castle and blocked half of the rain. Dragon. It's a giant dragon. One of the guards spoke first, shouting in panic. The rest of the people came to their senses and stared at the dragon above their heads in fear. Cole, who was in a state of embarrassment, ran towards Rhaegar from the corner and said urgently, "Princess, it was this dragon that took away the prince." "I know, I saw Rhaegar." Rhaegar looked up absently at the black dragon hovering above her, her eyes fixed on the figure on the dragon's back without blinking. Although it is far away, it is not clear. Rhaegar just knew it had to be Rhaegar. Under the horrified gaze of the crowd, the glutton circled the castle 3 times. Then he slowly glided and landed. Rumble. With a thunderous explosion, the glutton avoided the towers of the castle and landed smoothly on the towering city wall. Hiss. Stepping on the city wall with both feet, the glutton spread his wings wide, stretched his neck and roared into the sky, and a green dragon flame cut through the pouring rain. Seeing the monstrous dragon flames, the guards were all frightened and did not dare to move. Rhaegar sat on the dragon's back and whispered, "Glutton, let me down." Gluttony roared, folded his wings at his sides, lowered his slender neck, and got close to the ground of the castle grounds. As the glutton lowered his head, Rhaegar on his back was exposed to many eyes. Rhaegar looked down below, watching him with excitement. "Rhaegar!" Rhaegar shouted in alarm and ran quickly towards the city wall. Rhaegar looked down at his sister below and did not jump off the dragon's back immediately. He walked up the dragon's neck and reached the head of the glutton. With one hand, he held the gray-white dragon horn that was bent backwards on one side, and looked down from a high position. Rhaegar ran all the way to the glutton's head, noticed the green eyes and paused, and swallowed subconsciously. Gluttony is indeed the strongest wild dragon, not to mention its huge size and ferocious habits. Just looking at the appearance can give people nightmares at night. The whole body is as black as charcoal, without a trace of color. The green eyes were like 2 clusters of will-o'-the-wisps, indifferent to everything. The ferocious dragon head is covered with sharp horn thorns, and a total of 3 pairs of dragon horns, 1 large and 2 small, are bent back to form a gray-white horn crown. If you stand in front of a glutton, look into its eyes, I'm afraid I'll think I've seen an evil god, and feel extremely evil and frightened. Feeling the glutton's hot breath, Rhaegar took a half step back to show that she meant no harm. She looked at Rhaegar on the dragon's head and said ecstatically, "That's great, Rhaegar, I thought something happened to you." No one knew how worried she was. She only has one younger brother, and if he is gone, he is gone. Rhaegar raised his chin high and said calmly, "I said I could tame an adult dragon, and now I have done it. The journey of training the dragon is over, and what follows will be a small dragon fight and a peninsula adventure. I hope I can still get your love and support, thanks to AI 5676906. For the 10,000 points reward, I became the first leader of this book, and I am very impressive, thanks to Baishan Evergreen, for the 9,500 points rewarded to become the second helmsman of this book. I am grateful, thanks to Fat Cow for the 2,000 points, thanks to Master Juhai for the 1,500 points, thanks to Minami Sanjo, Warhammer, Total War, and All in the Past for the 1,000 points, thanks to Tadanobu Shimazu for the 600 points, thank you, the Inu Buddha Concubine, the Sow in Your Backyard, the Invincible Little Scar, the Golden Sail Sailing Across the Blue Sea, and the 500-point reward for eliminating the mango, thanks to the Enoki Mushroom for cucumber shooting, the Talking Banana. For the reward, and a certain digital book lover for the 200 points, thanks to Yang Yen 1, Jindong General, Xinhai Chiuyu, Huang Xiaoyang, Sankong AK, Qin Yunxian the Great Demon King, The Lazy Man Who Likes to Study God, What is Love, by Chioling, and multiple digital book friends for the 100 points. Currency, thanks to the teacher for the 100 reading points rewarded by Didi, thanks to Fu Guangyibei for the 200 reading points. I am very grateful to so many book friends for their support of the work. The author is extremely grateful. Next Monday, update on time. Chapter 65 Nightmare. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yes, you did it, you are a brave man, Tears streaked down her cheeks, and Rhaegar choked back her praises as she experienced the lost emotion. Hearing what she said, Rhaegar raised the corners of his mouth, not to mention how proud he was. Of course, I said I would protect you. However, the joy did not last long. Rhaegar's pretty face turned red, and she laughed with tears in her eyes. A man should put on some clothes first. It's ungentlemanly to face a lady with your bare buttocks. A gust of cool wind blew by, and Rhaegar lowered his head. Huahua's body was exposed, and the little sparrow was huddled in the cold. Rhaegar's face turned red at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. He hurriedly covered his legs and said, "Don't care about these details. Come down quickly, I have a lot to say to you." Rhaegar wiped away her tears, covered her mouth and snickered. Rhaegar lost his arrogance and slid down the dragon's back obediently. Rhaegar stepped forward and took him, taking off her cloak and wrapping it around his naked body. Rhaegar tried his best to hide his embarrassment, pointed to Gluttony, and asked, "My dragon, it's called Gluttony. Isn't Glutton the name the fisherman gave it?" Rhaegar didn't care about a dragon's name and hugged her brother tightly. Rhaegar said proudly, "Glutton likes this name, and so do I. It fits the dark appearance that it can swallow up all light." "Very well, you have grown up, Rhaegar." Rhaegar looked at him with complicated eyes and kissed his cheek. "Let's go. Father almost fainted when he heard the news that you were taken away by a glutton." Rhaegar held him in her arms, not wanting to let go, suffering from the lack of covering clothes. Rhaegar did not resist. He turned around and shouted at the glutton, "Don't run around, I'll come find you tomorrow." Roar. The glutton responded by jumping off the city wall and lying down on the outer cliff to rest. It wasn't until the glutton closed his eyes that the guards in the castle dared to come out and surround the siblings in the rain. Rhaegar pointed to a guard and said, "Prepare enough cattle and sheep for my dragon." "Yes, Prince," that the guards didn't dare to neglect. They rolled and crawled to prepare. Enter the castle hall. Viserys was already waiting at the door, looking at Rhaegar in Rhaegar's arms. His eyes were red with excitement, and he nodded repeatedly. "Just come back, just be fine." Rhaegar's smile faded. He lowered his head and said, "I'm sorry, Father, I secretly trained the dragon without your consent." "It doesn't matter. I was worried about your safety before, but it turns out that you did what we thought we couldn't do." Viserys showed a rare open-mindedness and stepped forward to touch Rhaegar's face and said gently, "Good boy, your sister told me your purpose of training the dragon. You are not doing it for yourself." "Not really, I do want an adult dragon." Rhaegar was at a loss for words due to the sudden sensation, and he revealed the truth sarcastically. He looked down upon a young dragon. Only a powerful adult dragon is worthy of him. Hearing that Rhaegar was the largest dragon in the world, he originally fantasized about that old dragon. Unfortunately, Rhaegar was tamed by Mtlnovel A, but God favored him. For him was prepared the tyrant-like beast of the glutton. His ferocious appearance and powerful strength both fascinated him. Viserys smiled and said non-committally, "As long as you want to protect your family, that's enough." As he spoke, he seemed to remember something. He said extremely seriously, "You two have been caught in the rain. Go and take a hot bath. I will ask Lord Robert to prepare a sumptuous dinner to celebrate your taming of the largest wild dragon." His mood swings were too violent today. I thought that the eldest son would encounter danger if he took the risk to tame the wild dragon. Unexpectedly, he underestimated this child. He possesses an enviable pure bloodline and the holy light favored by the gods, miraculously tamed the wild black dragon that no one had ever tamed before. That was a second-generation dragon that was hatched at the same time as Dreamfire, Wormizar, and Silverwing. Moreover, because it has never been tamed, the glutton has always been in a wild state, and has grown larger and stronger. Rhaegar followed her father's reminder and took Rhaegar back upstairs. She was soaked all over her body. Her father said he hadn't noticed it before, but now she just felt cold, wet and uncomfortable. Viserys stared at the backs of his children, his eyes filled with relief and melancholy. After a second thought, he murmured, "The family has regained control of an adult dragon, and it has become stronger again." He had never seen how big Glutton was. When he thought about it, it was 80% the same as Wormisol. It will be a destructive beast. At dinner, Alysanne didn't show up. The maid said she felt unwell and was frightened. Viserys was a little unhappy, but he pretended to be happy in front of his children and didn't show it. Rhaegar was slightly disappointed. he still wanted to show off his dragon. After dinner, Rhaegar was forcefully dragged to her room by Rhaenyra. Without saying a word, he pressed himself onto the soft big bed. Rhaegar frowned and said nervously, "Sister, what do you want to do?" "What do you think?" As soon as she entered the room, Rhaenyra's expression immediately changed and she stared at him with raised eyebrows. Rhaegar whispered, "I didn't mean to hide it from you, but I really want an adult dragon." "As you said, after taming an adult dragon, what do you want to do next?" Rhaenyra had not forgotten what he said before, and she was really afraid that he would ride a dragon to Tidehead Island and cause a scene. A child with an unstable mind, he dared to jump on the back of a wild dragon during the day, and at night he dared to ride the dragon and breathe fire everywhere. "Don't worry, I promise to be honest. Dragons are not sharp weapons." "I understand." Rhaegar promised seriously. Rhaenyra pinched his cheek, pulled hard, and said fiercely, "When did your guarantee take effect? You have no credibility with me. Then what do you think I should do? I've tamed the glutton, so you can't let me ride it, right?" Rhaegar slumped on the bed as if resigned to his fate. He was retorting with his mouth, but in his heart he was thinking about riding a dragon and flying away tomorrow. "Let's go out and play for a while, then go back to King's Landing when we've had enough." He hasn't gone out to see the outside world yet, but now that he has a dragon, he must travel around. "Humph, don't play rogue with me. At least you can't act without permission while traveling to and from Chowtu Island." Rhaenyra made a condition. "Okay, I will be obedient." Rhaegar pretended to be an obedient baby. Rhaenyra grabbed his chin, bit his face hard, and warned, "You'd better remember this, that this brother is too wild. The courage has never been seen before. If it is not restrained, it will break through the sky soon." The conversation between the siblings ended, the lights were turned off in the room, and Rhaenyra and Rhaegar slept on each side of the bed, back to back and neither of them talking. Drowsily, Rhaegar fell into sleep. In his dream, he traveled across the continent riding a glutton, leaving behind a series of legends. After a victorious return, he and Gluttony returned to Dragonstone. Before landing, 2 different dragon roars came from the island, making Rhaegar feel dizzy. Immediately afterwards, 2 giant dragons flew out from Longshan and attacked the glutton from front to back. He commanded the gluttons to fight, forcing back 2 giant dragons, and narrowly escaped. Just on the edge of the cliff leaving Dragonstone, he thought it was safe. Another giant dragon whose appearance was unclear rushed out from the corner, spitting out scarlet dragon flames and knocking him off its back. The other 2 dragons also caught up. 3 dragons surrounded the glutton. He fell to the ground seriously injured, and could only watch as the glutton was torn and bruised by the 3 dragons and devoured. In the end, all that is left of the glutton is a dying dragon head. A pair of green eyes stared at him unwillingly. The dragon fight is about to begin, showcasing the strength of a wave of gluttons. Chapter 66 Dancing Dragons. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As expected, Rhaegar was awakened by a nightmare. He didn't scream out like before. He opened his eyes blankly and remained silent. "A dragon is besieging me and gluttonous." He was a dreamwalker, and after having such a nightmare, it was hard not to think too much about it. Aha. After a while, a moan sounded from his side and reached his ears. Rhaegar turned his head and looked at Rhaenyra's position. There were only 2 of them in the room, and it had to be Rhaenyra. Rhaenyra was unaware of his gaze and still moaned, her voice filled with unbearable pain. "What's wrong with you, sister?" Rhaegar got up and looked worriedly at Rhaenyra. Through the moonlight reflected outside the window, Rhaegar saw the twisted look on Rhaenyra's face. Her pretty face was pale with an unnatural blush, her brows were furrowed, and cold sweat broke out on her forehead. Rhaegar saw many books on herbal medicine. It was obvious at a glance that Rhaenyra was ill. "Rhaenyra, do you have a fever?" Rhaegar put his hand to her forehead, which was indeed a little hot. "Anora, come in quickly, my sister is sick." Rhaegar hurriedly called out the door for Rhaenyra's usual maid. The maid who was keeping watch opened the door and came in, lit a candle, and checked on Rhaenyra. "The princess has a severe fever. I'll call the maester." The maid tested Rhaenyra's temperature and ran out anxiously. After some tossing, Rhaenyra also woke up from her sleep and opened her eyes in pain. Rhaegar used a wet towel to cool her forehead, but Rhaenyra tilted her head to avoid it. Her lips moved, and Rhaenyra seemed to want to say something, but her throat was inflamed and stinging. Rhaegar put his ear close and asked quickly, "What do you want to say?" "It hurts, my stomach hurts." Rhaenyra squeezed tears from the corners of her eyes, covered her abdomen with both hands, and kept moaning in pain. Rhaegar didn't understand why Rhaenyra had a stomachache, but he was worried about his sister. "Hold on, the bachelor will be here soon." Rhaegar rubbed his hands to warm them and placed them on her belly under the quilt. "As soon as I took it, it was cold." Rhaegar was startled, not expecting Renee's stomach to be so cold due to diarrhea. "Prince, the maester is here." The maid returned quickly and brought back the old bachelor, who was still half-dressed and carrying a medicine bag. The old maester gave Rhaenyra a diagnosis and said, "If you catch a cold in the rain during your menstrual period, drink some ginger tea and keep warm." The maid hurriedly prepared ginger tea. Rhaegar gave Rhaenyra some hot water. Boom! While caring for the sick Rhaenyra, there was a loud noise outside the castle. Rhaegar's hand holding the water shook, and a bad thought arose in his heart. After handing the hot water basin to the maid, Rhaegar came to the window and looked out at the situation. The heavy rain had stopped, but a flash of fire caught his attention. The edge of the castle was originally where the city wall was. At this time, a piece of the city wall was in ruins, with a blazing fire and smoke billowing. Above the ruins, there was a giant dragon hovering, roaring angrily. Not a glutton. The dragon was much smaller than Glutton. Rhaegar frowned, wondering why the dragon would attack the castle. Hiss! A loud dragon roar resounded through the night sky, followed by golden flames falling from the sky and spraying on the cliff outside the castle. Rhaegar suddenly became nervous. That cliff is where the glutton rests. At the same time, a huge noise woke everyone up. Lord Robert rushed out of the room in disheveled clothes and organized the guards to enter the main castle to protect the king's safety. Fires were lit in the castle, but Rhaegar's attention did not fall on the noisy guards at all. He stared outside the castle. Hiss! Sure enough, a familiar dragon roar sounded, the furious roar of a glutton. The huge jet-black dragon took off from the flat ground under the cliff, its green eyes staring at those of its kind who dared to attack it. As soon as the glutton appeared, two giant dragons immediately emerged from the night sky. By the light of the fire that filled the castle, Rhaegar could see their faces clearly. A huge dragon with bronze scales and brown wing membranes, a slightly smaller dragon with dark green scales and silver wing membranes. Rhaegar had never seen these two dragons, but he had read the Targaryen dragon map. If there is no accident, these two dragons must be Vermisor, known as the Fury of Bronze, and his partner Silverwing. Both dragons are currently ownerless dragons. It once belonged to Rhaegar's great-grandfather Jaehaerys Targaryen and his first wife. Since the death of these two long-lived old men, the two dragons have moved to Dragonstone. It's been almost 20 years. Seeing the two giant dragons, Rhaegar took a breath. Damn, the nightmare has come true. Rumble, not to mention the hustle and bustle in the castle. The three giant dragons under the night sky were scary enough. Vermisor and Silverwing attacked the glutton from both sides, breathing dragon flames. Not to be outdone, the glutton was not afraid of 2 against 1, waving its wings to dodge, and the green dragon flames illuminated half of the night sky. The three dragons went from spraying dragon flames to each other to chasing and biting each other. Soon, there was a fight, even. From a distance, Rhaegar could still feel the glutton's anger at this moment. "Hold on, I'll help you right now." Rhaegar murmured and walked away from the window. Passing by the bed, Rhaenyra stopped him with a hoarse voice filled with weakness. "Rhaegar, what happened?" "Glutton is irritated by something. I'm going to calm him down." Rhaegar told a little lie. Rhaenyra lay on her side on the bed, unable to open her eyes, breathing heavily. "Don't lie to me, I heard the roar of a dragon fighting." "It's really nothing. I'm going to appease the glutton and I'll be back soon." Rhaegar wiped the sweat from her forehead and explained softly. Unexpectedly, Rhaenyra suddenly held his wrist and begged in a daze, "Don't go, the dragon fight is dangerous, you are too young." "I'm not young anymore, I'm also a dragon knight now." Rhaegar broke free from her weak hand and said with a firm voice, "My dragon needs me, and I must fight with it. To me, you are more important than the dragon." Rhaenyra reluctantly opened her eyes, not wanting her brother to run into danger. Rhaegar said seriously, "To me, the dragon is as important as me." After saying that, Rhaegar lowered his head and kissed her forehead. stood up and left. He is a knight of gluttons who cannot back down from danger, otherwise, the dragon will not recognize him, and he himself will not recognize himself. The loud noise of the dragon fight shocked the entire castle. Viserys also woke up early, got dressed and stayed in his room under the protection of guards. There were many guards in the corridor, and the atmosphere was tense. The three dragons fighting at the edge of the castle would scare anyone. Rhaegar avoided the sight of the guards and ran out of the castle from the stairs, looking from a distance. The three dragons are still fighting. The glutton started from being at a disadvantage and gradually entered a disadvantageous situation. Mtlnovel and the Silver Wings have been together all year round, and their offensive rhythm is very harmonious. Tangle the glutton on the left and right to prevent him from easily getting out of trouble. Golden and orange dragon flames are spewed out at the same time, making it inevitable for gluttons to avoid and will always be hit by a burst of dragon flames. For a time, the air superiority was firmly occupied by Vermisor and Silver Wing. They spit out dragon flames from higher up, creating curtains of fire, forcing the gluttons to retreat step by step. The glutton dodges left and right, but its size is too large, so it is often impossible to avoid it. They can only restrain their hands and feet at a low place and rely on the wider and more powerful green dragon flames to fight back. Thank you for the 2,000 points rewarded by Big Sister Reading. Thanks to Kongshan Yumeng for the 1,500 points reward. Thanks for the understatement and SJY Big Bad Wolf's reward of 500 points. Thanks to Wong Quan Tai and a digital netizen for the 200-point reward. Thanks to Apologies, Transparent Sunny Day, Tassel Chaos Rain, and 2 digital book friends for the 100-point reward. Thanks to Fu Guang eBay for the 688 reading points. Chapter 67 Extreme 1 vs 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hiss. Not long after Rhaegar ran out of the castle, 2 dragons started a close-quarters fight against the glutton, roaring again and again. As a cunning wild dragon, Glutton is very experienced in combat. Never give the 2 giant dragons a chance to tear it apart. With its size, it is fearless in the face of any of them, and has the confidence to kill them. But if 2 of them are deployed at the same time, its already disadvantaged situation will be instantly defeated. The glutton breathes dragon flames while moving at high speed. Of the 2 dragons, one was suppressing it with dragon flames from high altitude, while the other was slaying it as if it was life-threatening. After persisting for a while, the glutton finally couldn't handle it. One wing was injured by the golden dragon flames. The glutton screamed and his body fell uncontrollably. With a roar, half of the city wall was knocked down, and stones and smoke flew into the sky. Hold on, glutton! Braving the choking dust, Rhaegar rushed to the glutton's side. Roar! The glutton's fallen body couldn't help but twist, and the dragon's head turned to see Rhaegar approaching. A flash of vigilance flashed through his green vertical pupils. Rhaegar held out his palm, as high as in the day, and spoke in High Valyrian. I am with you, glutton. Staring at the driver who still had faith in front of him, the vigilance in the glutton's vertical pupils slowly disappeared. It hit its nose hard, raised its neck high, stretched out one wing and spread it in front of Rhaegar. Very well, let's fight together. Rhaegar stepped on its wings and ran along the wing membrane to the back where it could be ridden, his face showing unprecedented excitement. The dragon controller took his place, and the gluttonous man stood up with his wings on the ground, shaking off the rubble all over his body. Under Rhaegar's fly command, it flapped its wings and flew into the night sky again. Hiss! Seeing the black dragon getting up, the 2 wild dragons hovering in the air showed a fierce look in their eyes and roared to launch a new round of attack. Rhaegar rode on Glutton's back, watching the movements of the 2 giant dragons closely, and warned, listen to my instructions later, Glutton. He had just mastered gluttony, and the bond between the 2 was not deep enough. If the 2 sides' ideas conflict during a battle, serious mistakes may result. The glutton roared, and the dragons kiss brewed green dragon flames, releasing a sense of recognition. Boom! Not long after Glutton's huge figure took off, a line of orange dragon flames descended from above and hit Glutton's head. Thanks to the glutton's agility, he turned sideways in an instant and avoided the dragon flame attack. The body swayed and regained its balance. Glutton, attack this dark green dragon with all your strength. It's important to defeat one first. Rhaegar pointed at Silver Wing, which changed its position as soon as the attack was successful, and gave the order to attack first. He had previously discovered that Vermisor and Silver Wings cooperated very well. but the offense is very different. Wormizer is larger and more ferocious in character, but it did not cull. This giant bronze beast has been carrying out dragon flame attacks in the sky, trying its best to suppress the movement of the glutton. This is also the main reason why gluttons are at a disadvantage. On the other hand, Silver Wing, the smallest and calmest among the three dragons, is always in a state of rage. It launches an almost crazy fight against gluttons that are much larger than it. This is inconsistent with the past habits of the two giant dragons. Rhaegar didn't have time to think so much. The most important thing now was to repel the two giant dragons or lure them away. The harm caused by the melee between the three giant dragons is terrifying. If they are allowed to fight, the castle on Dragonstone will surely become ruins. Hiss. The glutton accepted the order, flapped its wings and raised its height, and the dragon flames that had been brewing for a long time were sprayed towards the silver wings. Silver wings were more flexible and avoided the dragon flame. Above, Wormizer's golden dragon flames arrived again, attacking the glutton. Rhaegar's eyes never left Wormizer's movements. When he saw it spraying dragon flames, he quickly gave the order to avoid it. The glutton attacking Silver Wing hesitated slightly, then turned sideways and changed its flight path. The next second, the golden dragon flame scratched its back, and the high temperature distorted the air. Rhaegar was on Glutton's back, almost passing by the golden dragon flame. A strand of silver hair on the back of his head was ignited by dragon flames, quickly spreading throughout his body. Fortunately, Lei Jiao had quick eyesight and quick hands and snuffed out the weak dragon flames, otherwise he would have to ride the dragon naked again. Glutton, trust me, I am your second pair of eyes. After barely surviving the first combat encounter, Rhaegar broke into a cold sweat and became more serious about the bond between the dragon and the dragon rider. A moment ago, if the glutton had hesitated for one more second, he would have been hit head-on by Wormizer's dragon flames. Even if he possesses blood and fire, and true dragon's blood, he will not fall under the dragon flames. Prolonged exposure to dragon flames can also burn him. Through the evasion just now, the glutton also discovered the role of the dragon driver on his back and agreed with his command. It neighed and continued to pursue Silver Wing. It remembered the driver's instructions and killed the inconspicuous green dragon first. Silver Wing was not afraid of the oncoming glutton at all, and opened its wings to greet it, intending to fight in close combat. It has helpers, and it only needs to hold back the black dragon that stole the dragon eggs for a while. The partner will rush up and tear it apart together. The glutton has a violent personality. When he saw Silver Wing dare to take the initiative, he roared angrily and showed his fangs and claws. It will tear it to pieces and devour it in large gulps. The battle between the two dragons is about to begin. Two giant dragons charging at high speed collided together, their wings flapping to keep flying, their sharp claws tearing at each other, and their giant mouths biting continuously. Rhaegar rode unsteadily on the glutton's back, keeping his body low to avoid accidental injury. He turned his head and kept staring at Wormizer above. Facing this violent dragon, one must always be vigilant. As soon as there is any movement, he immediately commands the glutton to respond and avoid the two dragons' attacks. Hiss. Sure enough, Wormizer roared and dived towards the two dragons. Gluttony, release the dragon flames backwards. Rhaegar's heartbeat quickened and he gave the order to stop the glutton. Gluttonous was also aware of the danger, and looked back with a breath of surging dragon flames, heading straight towards the rapidly descending Vormisol. Boom! Wormizer responded with golden dragon flames, and two gorgeous dragon flames collided together, exploding into intense smoke. In the end, Glutton's green dragon flame was superior, breaking through the golden dragon flames. He hit the ferocious dragon head of Vormisol. The dragon flame hedging failed. Wormizer was hit by the remaining dragon flames and his mind was temporarily stiff. The huge body paused slightly and stayed in mid-air. Rhaegar's eyes lit up when he saw this, and he thought to himself, what a good opportunity. Wormizer has no time to support, so hurry up and capture the Silver Wing. That I kept thinking in my mind and made up my mind to make a quick decision. Glutton, dragon flame. The opportunity only lasted for a moment, so Rhaegar immediately issued the order. Gluttony and Silver Wing are in a fierce fight, scratching each other's body with their claws, stretching their necks to avoid and bite. The glutton heard the sound and raised his neck to avoid Silver Wing's bite, and a green dragon flame spurted out. Boom! The dragon flames hit Ini's head directly, and Ini suddenly screamed and flapped his wings in panic. The glutton took advantage of the victory and pursued it, biting Ini's neck that was twisting randomly, his fangs showing cold light. Poof! He bit Ini's neck hard, and blood spurted out instantly. Hiss! Hearing his partner's scream, Wormizer finally came to his senses, roared and pounced on the glutton again. Glutton, get out! As soon as Wormizer made a move, Rhaegar immediately gave the order to retreat. Dragon flame can stop Wormizer once, but it will never happen a second time. The smell of blood stimulated the glutton's ferocity. He seemed not to hear the instructions and opened and closed the dragon's kiss fiercely, intending to kill Silverwing in one fell swoop. Based on feedback from book friends, some improvements have been made to this chapter. It better shows the strength of the glutton. I hope everyone likes it. Chapter 68 Greatness or Crazy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hiss. At the moment of life and death, Silverwing inserted a pair of sharp claws into the glutton's abdomen, howling and spitting out dragon flames. However, with his neck being bitten, the dragon flame was unable to aim at all, and it streaked across the night sky ineffectively. Suffering a heavy blow, Gluttonous couldn't help but roar, and Dragon Kiss subconsciously relaxed. At the critical moment, Wormizer glided over. The golden dragon flames were like pillars of fire reaching the sky, impacting on the head of the glutton, biting the silver wings. The head was hit hard and the glutton fell into a brief daze. Dragon Kiss let go unconsciously, his wings stopped flapping, and was kicked away by the struggling silver wings with his sharp claws. It will eventually pay the price for its momentary mood. As soon as the two dragons separated, Silverwing, whose neck was filled with blood, immediately retreated. Staggering and difficult to balance, Wormizer growled at it and turned to chase the falling glutton. Rhaegar was tricked by the glutton. Even though he had been told in advance to follow the instructions, the vicious boss just went his own way. As the glutton failed, he fell with him. Experiencing the feeling of weightlessness again, Rhaegar skillfully grasped the scales on his back to prevent himself from falling. Glutton, wake up! He shouted the glutton's name loudly, trying to wake him up before he hit the ground. If it doesn't wake up, the moment it falls to the ground, it will be Rhaegar's death. Roar! Finally, the glutton opened his eyes from the dizziness and flapped his wings to stop his descent. It is a powerful wild dragon that travels the world. Its biggest advantage is its thick skin and thick flesh. A mere blow to the head from the dragon flame could not defeat it. Before falling to the ground, Gluttony regained control of his balance, spread his wings and began to glide, rising slowly against the steep cliff. At this time, Rhaegar noticed the glutton's injuries. The neck and wings were bitten respectively. 2 large holes were dug out of the abdomen. Dragon's blood flowed gurglingly, and the beating of internal organs could be vaguely seen. Rhaegar immediately realized that this dragon fight could not continue. The injury-for-injury strategy severely damaged Silverwings, and Gluttony himself was also scarred. The opponent also has a Wormizer in full swing, once entangled by the giant bronze beast. Even if the glutton wins, it will cause extremely tragic consequences. Rhaegar couldn't accept this ending. Gluttony, fly towards the sea. Rhaegar looked back at the pursuing Wormizer and gave the order to retreat. The 2 giant dragons are coming towards the glutton. As long as the glutton leaves, the dragon fight will be over. Hiss. Wormizer hung tightly behind him, and the golden dragon flames seemed like lightning piercing the dark night. Feeling the danger approaching, the glutton's reason overcomes his ferocity. Following Rhaegar's instructions, he flapped his wings and flew over the cliff, heading towards the beach. Rhaegar kept staring behind him. Ini didn't know if he was too seriously injured. He lay on the ground and roared with his head held high. He flew up and fell again. Silverwings has lost its fighting ability, and there is finally room for improvement. Rhaegar secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing Wormizer approaching, Rhaegar drove the glutton to dodge, turning back and spitting green dragon flames from time to time to resist. Glutton's dragon flame is very powerful, and it overwhelms Wormizer's dragon flame several times, hinder its faster pursuit. In the blink of an eye, the glutton was above the beach and about to fly to the sea. Suddenly, Rhaegar noticed the towering cliffs on the beach. In the flash of lightning, Rhaegar's heart was beating rapidly, and a sense of uneasiness surged into his heart. He recalled the scene from his nightmare. It was on such a cliff that another giant dragon sneaked out and attacked. The thought arose from his heart. Rhaegar's expression changed drastically, and he subconsciously shouted, "Dragon Flame." After a dragon fight, Gluttony and Rhaegar established a preliminary bond. The moment Rhaegar shouted out the dragon flame, the glutton turned his head in bliss, and sprayed a large mouthful of dragon flame towards the cliff below. Boom! In an instant, another scarlet dragon flame shot out from below the cliff. It collided directly with the glutton's green dragon flame. The scarlet dragon flames were instantly dispersed. The two dragon flames collided at close range, producing a powerful shock force. The glutton's figure was shaken by the airflow, adjusted his wings in an instant, and rushed out of Dragonstone Island without looking back. Lei Jia could barely sit still on the dragon's back, his head dizzy due to the strong wind. He lay on Glutton's back and looked back at the cliff. Sneak attack. Rhaegar stared at the cliff, wanting to catch a glimpse of the dragon hidden under the cliff. He dared to conclude that tonight's dragon fight was definitely not a natural occurrence. Someone must be planning it secretly. Unfortunately, there was nothing in sight except the moss-covered cliffs. Don't let me find you. Thinking of the silver wings on Dragonstone and the chasing Vormuther, Rhaegar gritted his teeth and ordered a quick evacuation. This conspiracy was against him. If he stays on Dragonstone, he will not only be in danger, but also his family in the castle. Leaving as soon as possible is the right choice. The glutton is extremely fast, and it is difficult for the dormant Vermisser to catch up. Both sides chased each other for a while, then were left far away by the glutton. And returned angrily. The glutton takes advantage of the darkness and disappears. On Dragonstone, man in black robes was hiding in the darkness of the beach, looking at the missing black dragon from a distance. Blocked. Coincidence, or was it expected? The man in black robe murmured to himself and took out a gold coin from his pocket. When a Targaryen is born, the gods toss a coin to decide whether he will be great or mad. Are you great or crazy? The voice of the man in black robe was indescribably deep and full of doubt. He threw the gold coin high and caught it with his hands in mid-air. With your palm facing up, expose the gold coin lying flat. The man in black robe stared at the upward side of the gold coin and fell into an inexplicable silence. After a while, the man in black robe angrily threw the gold coin far into the sea and left silently. On the other side, the castle, Viserys stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, looking angrily at the ruins of the city wall. He just got the news. When the three dragons were fighting, Rhaegar sneaked out and rode his dragon to fight alongside them. When he thought of the earth-shattering dance of dragons just a moment ago, he became frightened, fearing that something might happen to his eldest son. Fortunately, the jet-black dragon defeated Silverwing and escaped with Wormizor chasing him. As long as it is not killed on the spot, it is difficult to kill an adult dragon that wants to run away. This also means that his eldest son has also escaped and is not in danger for the time being. Did the two guards who pretended to spread the news find anything from the interrogation? Viserys asked the Prime Minister Lionel beside him. Leonor hurriedly replied, those two guards couldn't ask anything. The dragon man who falsely spread the news is missing, and the clues are broken. Go on and check. There is no airtight wall in this world. Viserys suppressed his anger and continued, there is also tonight's dragon attack. Vermuther and Silverwing have always lived in the dragon's lair, so it is impossible for them to show up together to launch an attack for no reason. Your Majesty, according to the guards stationed in the tower, Wormizor and Silverwing came for Glutton, and they started fighting as soon as they met. Leonor expressed his speculation. Glutton is the largest wild dragon on the island. He often steals dragon eggs and hunts young dragons. It is probably this that angers Silverwing after laying eggs. The scene of the dragon fight was witnessed by everyone. The only way to drive the usually docile Silverwing into madness is because the dragon eggs were stolen. Check. Search severely for me. Don't let everyone in the castle go. The knuckles of Viserys' hands turned white as he said with a fierce look in his eyes, this is a conspiracy against the king's heir. No matter who did it, he must pay the price. This chapter has been slightly modified to fit the plot of the previous chapter. In the future, emotional scenes will be described in a subtle way, which will not affect the subsequent plot. Thanks to a digital book friend for tipping me 1,500 points, thanks to a digital book friend for the 1,000 point reward, thanks to the Dolua Continent Black fans for the 800 points reward, thanks to Jiangbei Jinan for the 500 points reward, thanks to Anjuan88, Crossbody Penguin, Jade Watermelon, and Li Duong for the 100 point reward, thanks to Ah Fat and Hei Shi for the 100 reading points. Chapter 69 Crab Claw Peninsula. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. Dark night, above the narrow sea, Rhaegar rode the glutton soaring over the turbulent seas. The glutton's abdomen was severely injured, and blood kept flowing, staining the sea surface red where it passed. After a thrilling experience, Rhaegar realized that his heartbeat was speeding up. He patted the glutton's scales and asked, "Why did those two dragons attack you?" That he knew it was a conspiracy. "But I am still curious about how Wormizar and Silverwing were provoked," Gluttony growled. Expressing his dissatisfaction, Rhaegar heard its meaning. At night, someone fed it many cattle and sheep. During this period, he also threw a dragon egg to it. As a wild dragon that likes to eat dragon eggs, it is natural that gluttons will accept all comers. Makes up for the snack tasting after failing to hunt the baby dragon. Rhaegar held his forehead helplessly, and he guessed that the glutton must have done something outrageous to attract the attack of Wormizar and Silverwing. Dragon eggs and young dragons are treasures on Dragonstone Island. You are not allowed to steal food again. Rhaegar gave a stern order. Roar. Despite being seriously injured, Gluttony remained proud and growled in protest. Rhaegar tried to communicate with it and discussed giving up his obsession with dragon eggs and young dragons. Gluttonous is a straight-tempered dragon and does not hide the reason why he steals dragon eggs and young dragons. The territory of Dragonstone Island is too small. If you don't steal dragon eggs and baby dragons, the growing dragons will squeeze your living space. Rhaegar read its meaning. Don't worry, Dragonstone Island really can't accommodate too many dragons. I will find living space for the new generation of dragons. And you, my friend, are not allowed to steal dragon eggs and baby dragons anymore. I will order you to prepare enough livestock on time. Understanding the glutton's concerns, Rhaegar proposed a solution to the problem. The glutton flew away with his head down, neither agreeing nor refusing. Rhaegar said no more. When it comes to territory and living space, neither dragons nor humans will give in easily. By finding more land suitable for dragons to survive, the glutton's habits will naturally change. The glutton flew farther and farther, and Rhaegar did not know where it was going. Most likely it's in the narrow sea. One thing is bad. Rhaegar was keenly aware that the glutton's flying speed gradually slowed down and his breathing began to take a heavy breath. Your injuries are serious. We need to find a place to stay. Rhaegar reminded him worriedly, noting the glutton's bleeding abdomen and other wounds. Roar. Gluttony roared back, but it seemed weak compared to the loudness before. At the break of dawn, the rays of the morning sun filtered through the clouds and mist, and Rhaegar lay tiredly on Glutton's back, overlooking the sea below. Suddenly, he saw the edge of a piece of land. Slowly, more and more land appeared, including dense forests and endless mountains. Hurry! We have found the land, Glutton. Rhaegar pointed downwards excitedly. Gluttony glanced at him sideways and lowered his height without saying a word. Of course it knows where the land is. As a wild dragon that likes to wander around, it knows exactly where there is a suitable place to stay. From the ocean to the land, Rhaegar experienced a different kind of novelty. He originally planned to ride a glutton to travel across the continent and explore around. Unexpectedly, I didn't prepare a plan, so I set off passively. The glutton crossed the barren land near the sea and soared among the jagged mountains and peaks, landed in a valley intertwined with dense forests, swamps and rivers. The moment he landed, the glutton's feet were already unsteady. He staggered a few steps and fell heavily on the muddy grass. A deep ravine was plowed. Rhaegar, who had not slept a wink all night, was already exhausted. He did not hold on tightly before landing, and was thrown off the dragon's back following the trajectory of the glutton's fall. He fell to the ground with a thud, rolled twice, and fainted. For a moment, one person and one dragon fell down one after another, looking slightly miserable. Hiss. The dragon's physique is indeed powerful. Despite the second trauma to his abdomen and bleeding, the glutton still managed to push himself up and stand up unsteadily. He looked at Rhaegar, who had fainted on the ground with vertical pupils, and there was a trace of hesitation in his eyes. He lowered his head and arched Rhaegar's body, changing his lying position to lying flat on his back. The steady rise and fall of its chest proved that its dragon master was still alive. Fortunately, the grass where Rhaegar landed was soft enough and had a shock-absorbing effect. Rhaegar was just tired and sleepy and fell unconscious, with no obvious injuries. The glutton stretched his neck and looked at the environment of the valley. it specifically chose a good place to land, and there were things nearby that could help it speed up its recovery from its wounds. There are no large beasts in the valley, and there are many caves suitable for hiding on the cliffs. The glutton opened his mouth and gently held Rhaegar in his mouth, then walked towards a cave with a wide view. It placed Rhaegar at the entrance of the cave and slowly arched his nose into the cave. It has to find something to heal its wounds. The dragon rider is too fragile to go to that kind of place. Hiding is a good choice anyway. With its speed, it will be back soon. The glutton crawled out of the valley. When he stopped at the mouth of the valley, he looked back at the cave where Rhaegar was hiding. After pausing for a moment, he lifted his tail slightly and pulled out a piece of dragon dung. Just in case, leave his mark so that no wild beast dares to disturb him. After doing everything well, the glutton let out a long roar and flapped its wings to fly high again. Noon, the sun was high in the sky and the forest valleys were filled with warmth. Rhaegar's eyelids trembled as he was in the cave, as if he was about to wake up. At this time, there was a sound in the valley. "Come and take a look, there's such a big and long blood stain. I don't know what kind of giant beast left it. Tormund, be careful, there is something strange in this valley." Hearing chaotic conversations, Rhaegar slowly opened his eyes and looked around blankly. "Where is this?" The glutton, looking at the cave filled with cobwebs. Rhaegar was a little confused. He remembered that the gluttons found a piece of land and they came to a hidden valley. Then, he didn't know. "Someone is setting me up, and there is a dragon ambushing me in the dark." Lei Jia suddenly remembered the scene of the sneak attack. But who has the ability to sneak into Dragonstone Island and secretly plot against him? Rhaegar's mind turned over and over again for people with such motivations and abilities, and he could only think of one. "When I go back, I won't let you go." Guessing who the murderer was, Rhaegar secretly clenched his fists. "Sister, come quickly, there are new traces in front of this cave." Just as he was thinking about it, a childish cry came from outside the cave, calling for his companions. A sound of rustling footsteps followed closely behind. Rhaegar suddenly became nervous. He stood up gently, took out a dagger from the space bracelet, and hid it behind his waist. In a short time, the sounds outside the cave got closer and closer. Rhaegar frowned and tightened his grip on the dagger. Being in an unknown place, with the dragon not by his side, it was too dangerous for him as a young child to be alone. "Who's in there? Come out!" A girl's scolding came from outside the cave. Rhaegar tilted his head, his mind racing. Judging from the previous sounds, there were about 3 people outside, 2 little boys and a girl called Sister. Rhaegar blinked, feeling that the danger was greatly reduced. As long as he was not left among the savages, with his harmless age and noble origin, he was confident that no one would be stupid enough to hurt him. It would be better if you meet a nobleman hunting. Not to mention holding a grand celebration to welcome him. At least he'll be entertained with delicious food and drinks, and escorted back to King's Landing safely. A new journey, when Rhaegar returns, will change the situation. Chapter 70 Free People. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Relax, I'll be right out. After careful consideration, Rhaegar decided to be on the safe side and be honest. He put the dagger back into the space bracelet and slowly walked out of the cave with his hands raised high. As soon as he exited the cave, he saw an open bow and arrow pointing at him. Rhaegar was startled and took half a step back. A child? The person pulling the bow was a half-grown girl wearing a leather skirt and jacket, staring at Rhaegar in confusion. Seeing the other party's dress, Rhaegar felt a chill in his heart. The girl in the leather skirt did not put away her bow and arrows, and moved slowly, warning, "Is there anyone else in the cave? Come out together." Rhaegar stood there and did not dare to move, and said honestly, "No need to shout, it's just me." "Fart, how can a kid like you walk through the swamp jungle?" The girl in the leather skirt cursed and glanced sharply at Rhaegar's body. Rhaegar understood instantly. The other party mistook him for a child from a noble family through his clothes. After pondering for a moment, "Are you from a certain tribe?" He used his words very euphemistically and did not say the word savage. The so-called savages are the collective term for free people who do not obey the jurisdiction of local lords, a group of disobedient, barbaric and rude barbarians, so said the maester who taught him. The girl in the leather skirt ignored him and continued to stare at the entrance of the cave. Behind her, 2 small boys rushed out. He was wearing animal skin clothes and holding a bone axe and shovel in his hand. One person grasped Rhaegar firmly with one hand and dragged him aside. Be gentle, don't use so much force. Rhaegar felt a little pain from being pressed by them, and said helplessly, 2 boys, one about 10 years old, thin and frail. One looked bigger, dark-skinned, and very muscular. They didn't listen to Rhaegar at all and paid serious attention to the movements of the girl in the leather skirt. It turned out that Rhaegar was not lying. The girl in the leather skirt dodged to the entrance of the cave and shot out an arrow, hitting the hard rock wall. Looking around, the cave was completely empty, not to mention Tibetans, not even a mouse. The tense atmosphere eased, and the girl in the leather skirt secretly breathed a sigh of relief. She picked up the bow and arrow and signaled the 2 younger brothers to take Rhaegar into the cave. The skinny boy tied Rhaegar with a hemp rope and threw him in the corner of the cave. Rhaegar moved disgustedly to avoid getting caught in the dusty cobwebs. The girl walked up to him, held his chin with her hand, and said fiercely, "Who are you? Which family are you from? Where are you, sir?" Rhaegar was pinched so hard that he stared at the girl displeased. "You dare to glare at me? If you don't tell me the truth, you will be punished." The girl increased her strength and was full of threats. After some contact, Rhaegar felt more courageous. He glanced at the girl several times, a very capable girl with brown curly hair, a tall nose, and regular facial features. Rhaegar didn't care about any of this. He only values 2 things, the girl's wheat-colored smooth skin and the blood blisters on her knuckles. Rhaegar's eyes flashed and he said, "You're not a savage, are you?" The girl's expression changed slightly and she said coldly, "I'm asking you something, don't change the subject. That's your brother, and neither of you are savages." The change in the girl's attitude confirmed Rhaegar's suspicion. In the girl's suspicious eyes, Rhaegar spoke eloquently, "Savages have been living outside since childhood, and they can't raise smooth faces, let alone sick rice." Lei Jia glanced at the thin boy pointedly. As a veteran frail patient, he is sensitive to issues of personal health. You can tell at a glance that the thin boy is not in good physical shape and does not look like a savage child. In other words, even savages cannot raise a child born with poor physical constitution. The girl's face darkened. She let go of her hand holding Rhaegar's chin, and said rudely, "So what? You are very smart, but little cleverness can't save your life. Tell me your origins, otherwise I will show no mercy to you." No, I am only 6 years old. Abusing children is not allowed anywhere." Rhaegar shook his head repeatedly and suggested, "You can untie me and let's have a heart-to-heart talk. Maybe I can help you." Finally, he emphasized, "I know many bachelors who are proficient in herbal medicine and can help your brother treat his illness." "My brother is not sick." The girl retorted disdainfully. Rhaegar didn't believe it. "Your brother's face is pale, it doesn't look like he's not sick. If you keep talking nonsense, I'll beat you up." The girl threatened with her fist raised. Rhaegar immediately became honest and smiled coquettishly. People have to bow their heads under the eaves, because they don't want to suffer physical pain. In view of Rhaegar's thin appearance, the girl thought about it and untied his straw rope. "Sister, he seems to be a child of a noble family," the thin boy reminded in a low voice. "Nonsense, look at the clothes he's wearing, you can tell he's a child from a noble family." The sturdy boy choked him. The thin boy shut up angrily and squatted aside to watch. The girl glared at the burly boy and said seriously, "Tezzen, you go find Uncle Falcon and the others, and Tormund, and I will interrogate him." "But..." The boy named Tezzen looked reluctant and was forced back by the girl's dangerous look. He ran out of the cave coyly. With one person missing, the girl's expression softened a lot, and she said calmly, "My name is Balan, he is my brother Tormund, and we are from the Peregrine tribe." "Where's the last name?" Rhaegar asked tentatively. "Without a surname, we are illegitimate children, and we are hated by people." Judging from the tone and manner in which she said these words, she was very angry about her origins. "That's right. Didn't that illegitimate child come here because of being looked down upon?" "No one else would accept it." Calmly, Balan asked, "Who are you? Why are you alone in the cave? What's with the blood and the excrement outside?" Rhaegar pursed his lips, hesitating whether to reveal his true identity. If the other party is a sane person, he can be detained and exchanged with the royal family for money, but for an illegitimate child who is very dissatisfied with her birth, who knows if she will do something mindless out of jealousy? Balan's eyes never left him for a moment. And she could guess his concerns with just a quick guess. He said disdainfully, "Say it, I won't do anything to you. The Peregrine tribe is an orderly tribe that protects young children and women." "Well, I hope you're not too surprised." Rhaegar shrugged and said, "My name is Rhaegar Targaryen. The king is my father. I came here riding a dragon to travel the scenery of the continent." This statement is half true and half false. Not only did he reveal his origin, he also had to intimidate the other party. "Targaryen. Are you a prince?" Baolan was stunned for a while before reacting. Younger brother Tormund's eyes were full of excitement, and he stepped forward and asked, "You said you came here with a dragon, but where is your dragon? Answer the questions one by one, don't rush." Rhaegar said solemnly, "Once again, I am indeed a prince. Look at my silver hair and purple eyes. They are symbols of the Targaryen family." He had to ensure his personal safety. As long as they don't go crazy, they shouldn't be able to hurt him. The two siblings in front of them were still immersed in the excitement of kidnapping a prince. Capturing the true dragon blood of a Targaryen in his lifetime is a bit bizarre no matter how you say it. Today is a double monthly ticket. Friends who still have monthly tickets can vote. Don't forget to read it. Thank you. Thanks to a certain digital netizen for the 800 points. Thank you. Please don't exchange the 333 points rewarded by the heroine. Thanks for the 200 points rewarded by Sunmi Shudao. Thanks to the bookworm Little Gold, Pazes, Hua Ming, Guadatai, Jiaorenyao update, and a certain digital book friend for the 100 point reward.